Must be nice having all that free time, my sister mocked at Thanksgiving. She didn't realize the new app everyone at her firm was raving about had my name on it. What happened next? I'm a 38-year-old woman who's been through a lot of ups and downs. I'm divorced, which isn't something I talk about much, but it was a painful chapter of my life. I've been working on a personal project, an app that I developed on my own for the last few years. It's called Bridge, and its purpose is to help people deal with stress and burnout, something I've struggled with in the past. My family didn't know about this app because I didn't want to hear their dismissive comments, especially from my older sister, Candace. Well, fast forward to Thanksgiving. Candace, being her usual self, mocked my free time when I mentioned my work, and I didn't think much of it. Little did she know, that app everyone at her corporate firm was raving about? Yeah, it had my name on it. The moment she realized that? Let's just say things changed in a big way. The dinner table at my parents' house was always a battleground of sorts. The usual routine, fake smiles, questions about work, and those subtle jabs. I wasn't a corporate success story like my older sister, Candace. She had a high-paying job at a prestigious firm, a husband who was always in a suit and tie, and kids who were practically perfect. I, on the other hand, had carved out a different life for myself. I worked as a freelancer, consulted on projects, and developed products from home. No shiny office building, no big corporate job. And I'd been through a divorce years ago, which wasn't something I liked to discuss with anyone. Candace, of course, didn't let me forget that I wasn't doing as well as her. I remember Thanksgiving last year, the way she looked at me with that familiar smugness. I knew it was coming, but it still stung every time. Must be nice having all that free time, she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm, as she leaned back in her chair with a wine glass in hand. I mean, it must be so peaceful, not being tied down to some boring 9-to-5 job. I didn't respond at first. I just picked up my food, keeping my eyes on my plate. Candace had always been the one who everyone in the family looked up to, the successful one. She had a career that made my work seem insignificant in comparison. My freelance gigs didn't seem to impress her, and I wasn't about to explain my projects to someone who wouldn't understand. Besides, this was just how it always was between us. I had been working on Bridge for almost 5 years by this point. It started as an idea I came up with when I was trying to find a way to deal with the stress I'd been carrying after my divorce. At first, it was just something I tinkered with late at night when I had time to myself. Then it grew into something bigger, something I knew had potential. It was designed to help people cope with burnout and anxiety in a simple, accessible way. But no one in my family knew about it, not really. I had kept it to myself, not wanting their judgment. After all, Candace and the rest of the family didn't understand why I'd leave a stable career and venture into something unknown. They thought I was wasting time. But that Thanksgiving, Candace's comment about my free time hit a nerve. I let it go that day, not wanting to cause a scene. But it lingered in my mind for days after. A week later, Candace called me. Her tone was different, excited, almost frantic. "Have you heard about this new app?" she asked, her voice rushing with energy. "Everyone at work is talking about it. It's called Bridge, and it's supposed to be revolutionary. People are saying it's the best thing for stress and burnout." "I don't know, it's just everywhere right now." I paused, my heart racing a little. I had spent years developing this app, pouring my soul into it. But I never told anyone in my family about it. They wouldn't get it. They'd just see it as another one of my side projects. I decided to play it cool. "Yeah, I've heard of it." Candace continued, clearly unaware of the irony of what she was saying. "It's huge right now. My colleagues can't stop talking about it. And it's not just some fad, this thing is legit. People are actually investing in it. There's even a buzz about it on social media. You should check it out." "Sounds like a good app," I said, keeping my voice even. "I'm glad it's getting attention." Another silence followed, then Candace asked, a little more cautiously this time, "Wait, hold on. Combridge, you didn't have anything to do with that, did you? My heart skipped a beat. It was a question I had been dreading. Actually, I did, I said, my voice steady but my mind racing. I'm the one who created it. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Candace didn't know how to respond at first. Then she finally spoke, her voice low and almost disbelieving. You created Combridge? I could feel the weight of her words. It was like the universe had shifted just a little. Yep. That's my project. Candace didn't know what to say after that. I could practically hear her processing it. After a few beats, she finally said, wow. I had no idea. I mean, this app is huge. People are talking about it at work like it's the next big thing. And I didn't even know it was you. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't answer right away. Why didn't I tell her? The truth was, I didn't need her validation. Not anymore. I didn't need anyone's approval. I had worked hard to build something meaningful, and now it was paying off. I didn't think you'd care, I said softly. Her voice softened. I guess I should have cared. I'm sorry for how I treated you. I never should have mocked your work like that. I didn't know. I didn't expect you to, I said. But maybe now you understand. Candace was quiet for a moment, and I could almost feel the shift in our relationship. For the first time in years, she wasn't the one looking down on me. She was the one surprised by my success, and it felt good. The days that followed were a blur of meetings and media attention. Combridge quickly became a sensation. The app I'd created was now everywhere. It was featured in articles, and people started praising it for its simplicity and effectiveness. Investors showed interest, and the idea that had once been just a dream was now a reality. Candace reached out again, not to apologize, but to ask if I'd be willing to help her firm implement Combridge as part of their employee wellness program. She wanted to be involved, to be part of something she had dismissed only weeks before. I could have said no. I could have shut her out completely. But instead, I chose to be professional. I gave her the information she needed, and I agreed to work with her firm. In the back of my mind, though, I couldn't help but wonder if Candace's sudden interest was a genuine change of heart or if it was just because Combridge was now the hottest thing on the market. I didn't care. The fact was, I had created something real. Something that had helped people. And that was more than enough. It wasn't long before the buzz around Combridge reached new heights. Articles started to flood in about the way the app was changing the conversation around burnout. It was being featured on tech blogs, mental health websites, even mainstream news outlets. Suddenly, people I didn't even know were reaching out: investors, mental health professionals, and individuals who had heard about the app through their workplace wellness programs. Candace, of course, was all in. She seemed genuinely excited about Combridge, and I'll admit, I was cautiously optimistic. For years, I had lived in the shadow of her success, always feeling like the second choice in my family's eyes. But now, with my app growing, I was finally starting to see a shift. It was strange, though. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but something about her interest felt different. Like she was trying to make up for the way she had treated me in the past. We had a few phone calls to discuss the logistics of her firm implementing the app, and during those conversations, I tried to keep it professional. But something about her tone was changing. She no longer sounded dismissive or condescending. She wasn't talking down to me anymore. I really think this is going to change things, Candace said one day, sounding almost earnest. I mean, everyone at work is buzzing about it. There's talk of a full company-wide rollout. You really did something amazing. I didn't know how to respond to that. It was the first time in years that she had spoken to me like an equal, and part of me felt proud, but another part of me couldn't shake the nagging feeling that her interest in Combridge wasn't entirely genuine. I didn't want to dwell on that, though. My success wasn't about proving something to Candace. It was about helping people. It had always been about that. But then, as the app gained more attention, I started receiving messages from Candace's colleagues. It was flattering at first, hearing about how much they were benefiting from Combridge. Some of them even wanted to interview me about the app for their company's internal newsletter. I was happy to share my story and talk about the app's features, but the more I got involved, the more I noticed Candace's behavior. She would always be quick to tell me about the progress at her firm, mentioning how much Combridge was being used, and how successful the implementation was. She was proud, but there was an undercurrent to it, like she was trying to claim ownership of it in some way. I started to feel uneasy. It wasn't that I didn't want her to be proud of me, or to have a part in spreading the app's impact. It was just that I didn't want her to take credit for something I had worked on for so many years. One evening, after yet another phone call where she went on and on about how great everything was going, I found myself snapping. "Candace," I said, cutting her off mid-sentence, "I'm glad things are going well, but I don't want you to forget whose idea Combridge really is. I know you're excited, but it's my work. I spent years on this, and I need you to respect that." There was a silence on the other end of the line. I immediately regretted my tone. I didn't want to alienate her. This was the first time in ages that we were having a meaningful conversation. But I also couldn't let her claim something that was mine. "I never meant to take credit for it," she said softly. I guess I've been so caught up in how much success it's getting that I didn't realize how it might come across." I could hear the sincerity in her voice, but I was still on edge. "I know it's exciting for you, but please, just don't forget that it's my creation. I want you to be proud of it, but I don't want you to take ownership of something you didn't build." There was another pause, longer this time, before Candace spoke again. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. I'm just trying to help however I can. And you're right. You deserve the credit. I didn't mean to overstep." I could hear the vulnerability in her words. It was a side of Candace I wasn't used to, especially when it came to anything related to me. It was clear that, for the first time, she was seeing me in a new light. And while part of me felt like this was the moment I had been waiting for, to finally be recognized for my accomplishments, another part of me felt conflicted. Could I really forgive her for all the years of belittling comments? Could I accept that she might finally be genuinely proud of me, or was this just a phase? Over the next few weeks, Candace kept her distance a bit. I didn't hear from her as much, which I found oddly reassuring. It was like she had realized that this wasn't just another opportunity for her to bask in someone else's success. It was about me and the people I was helping with Combridge. But just when I started to feel like things were settling, Candace reached out again, and this time it was different. "I've been thinking," she started, her voice hesitant, "about how I've treated you over the years. And I wanted to apologize. I've always been so wrapped up in my own life, in my own success, that I never really considered how you might feel. I never saw the things you were doing for yourself. And I see now that you've built something incredible. I don't know if I've ever truly told you how proud I am of you." The sincerity in her voice hit me in a way I didn't expect. I'd been waiting for this moment for so long, but now that it was here, I wasn't sure what to make of it. Was this real? Or was it just a reaction to the success of Combridge? "I appreciate that," I said, my voice softer than I meant it to be. "It means a lot. But I don't need you to tell me you're proud of me. I'm proud of myself. For once, I don't need anyone's validation. And that's something I'm still learning to accept." There was a brief pause. I wasn't sure what Candace was thinking, but I could tell she was reflecting on what I had said. She didn't argue or try to explain herself, she just let me speak. "Maybe that's something we both need to learn," she replied quietly. "To stop seeking approval from others. Maybe we've both been doing that for too long." And for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was finally on equal ground with my sister. We were no longer rivals. We weren't competing for the same spotlight. We had both built our own lives in different ways. And maybe, just maybe, we were starting to understand each other. The weeks following that conversation with Candace felt like a quiet turning point. We didn't talk as much after our heartfelt exchange, but there was a new, unspoken understanding between us. Candace had started to show a genuine interest in what I was doing, and while I appreciated her change in attitude, I couldn't completely shake the feeling that she was still trying to find a way to insert herself into my success. It wasn't overt, but there were subtle moments where she would reference Combridge as though she had played a larger role in it than she actually had. She started bringing it up at family gatherings more often, making sure people knew about it, about its success, and about the impact it was having at her firm. The conversations would always lead back to Combridge at some point, with her mentioning how proud she was of me, but it felt calculated, like she was trying to claim some piece of the glory. It didn't sit right with me. I'd heard through the grapevine that her firm was working on a potential deal with a large investor to fully integrate Combridge into their corporate wellness program. It made sense, they'd been using the app for a while, and it was getting rave reviews. But what Candace didn't know was that I had already been contacted by the same investor, who had expressed interest in a partnership with me directly. They had been following the app's progress and had decided to cut out the middleman entirely. It was a quiet, business-like arrangement, nothing flashy. I had always known that Combridge had potential, but seeing it grow beyond my expectations was still surreal. What Candace didn't realize was that this investor was now my partner, and I was in control of the negotiations, not her or her firm. And that meant that I was about to deliver the kind of quiet, satisfying revenge that didn't require cruelty or confrontation, just results. It was a crisp, clear morning when Candace called me again. Her voice was practically giddy. "So, I've heard some exciting news," she said, almost too eagerly. "I heard you've been talking to investors. Sounds like Combridge is about to make it big. Well, I wanted to let you know that my firm might be able to help with a partnership. I've been putting in a good word for you, you know." I let her ramble on, my patience wearing thin. She had no idea that the partnership was already secured on my terms. "That's great, Candace," I said, my tone calm but measured. "But, you see, I've already signed the deal with the investor you mentioned. They're bypassing your firm entirely. I'll be handling the full rollout of Combridge myself from here on out." The silence on the other end of the line was palpable. It stretched on for a long moment before Candace finally spoke. "Wait, what do you mean? I thought we were working together on this." "No, Candace," I said, keeping my voice steady. "You've been talking about Combridge to everyone at work, like it's something you helped create, and I just can't let that slide anymore. I've worked too hard on this to let someone else take credit. I appreciate that you helped spread the word, but this is my project, and the investor chose to work directly with me." I could almost feel the shift in the air. She didn't say anything at first. She was probably processing the fact that I had outmaneuvered her, completely without drama. "Are you serious?" she asked, her voice now strained. "Completely," I replied. "You were never in the loop on the business side, Candace. I've been building this for years. You can't just swoop in and act like you had a hand in it. It's mine, and I'm in charge now. I didn't want to be harsh about it, but I can't pretend that everything's fine when it isn't." Candace didn't respond immediately. I could hear her breathing in and out, probably trying to get her emotions under control. But in that moment, I didn't care. I had done what needed to be done. I had claimed my space, and it felt like a weight had lifted off my shoulders. "Well, I guess I misjudged the situation," she finally said, her voice low. I thought I was helping. I never meant to take credit for your work." "I know you didn't mean to," I said, "but it's not about intent, Candace. It's about what's real. And what's real is that Combridge is my baby, my creation. I built it from the ground up." She was quiet for a long time after that. I could tell she was struggling with her emotions. I felt a small part of me want to give her an out, but I knew that wasn't the point. This was the moment where everything had shifted. There was no going back. And that was the satisfaction I needed. Finally, Candace spoke again. "I guess I've got a lot to think about. Thanks for letting me know. I'll I'll leave you to it then. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Yeah. Take care, Candace. When I hung up the phone, I felt a strange sense of calm. I hadn't yelled, hadn't resorted to the cruel, dramatic confrontation I'd imagined in my head a million times. It had been simple, just the truth, delivered quietly and firmly. No need for drama. No need for revenge that caused harm. A month later, the launch of Calmbridge went live. It was a huge success. The investor who had partnered with me put their full support behind the app, helping me expand my vision and reach millions of people. It was everything I had hoped for and more. As for Candace, she distanced herself from the whole situation. She continued to talk about Calmbridge at family gatherings, but now she did it in a way that felt almost forced, like she was trying to convince herself that she had been part of the journey. There were no more glowing recommendations or subtle boasts about her help in my success. She had learned the hard way that you can't just take credit for someone else's hard work, no matter how much you try to insert yourself into their story. In the end, the revenge I got was simple but satisfying. I didn't need to make her suffer or drag her through a confrontation. All I needed to do was build something meaningful, something I could stand behind, and let the results speak for themselves. She had underestimated me, belittled my work for years, but in the end, I had created something bigger than she could ever take credit for.